Craig Daniels is a car mechanic whose life has been falling apart lately. Unpaid bills, an empty wallet, and an eviction notice posted at his apartment door that very morning. The only things Craig still has are his loving wife, his 1.5-year-old son, and his job at the auto shop, which is where he heads early that morning. However, it turns out Craig no longer has that job either. His boss informs him that he's been fired. The news hits Craig so hard that he doesn't have the strength to go home. How can he look his wife in the eyes and tell her they have nothing left to live on? To delay that moment, Craig calls his wife and tells her he'll be home late. He claims he ran into an old friend and wants to grab a drink with him at a bar. The bar part isn't a lie. Craig really does walk into a local dive and orders alcohol, trying to drown out his anxiety. Suddenly, someone jumps on him from behind, and Craig thinks he's about to be robbed. But no, it turns out to be Vince, an old friend Craig hasn't seen in years. Vince suggests they sit down at a table. After 5 years apart, they clearly have a lot to talk about. Noticing Craig's depressed mood, Vince asks what happened. Craig doesn't dodge the question for long. He tells him everything: the firing, the eviction, and the fact that only $4,500 can save him from disaster. Vince listens and sympathizes, but admits he can't help. He's broke too, and that amount is simply too much. Craig excuses himself to the bathroom, planning to say goodbye afterward and head home. But when he returns, Vince is already sitting with a strange, wealthy couple and almost forces Craig to join them. Their names are Colin and Violet, a married couple with a large age gap. They're celebrating Violet's birthday, yet for some reason chose a shabby bar instead of a fancy restaurant. When the waitress approaches the table, Craig and Vince are shocked again. Right in front of them, Colin casually orders a bottle of wine for $350. A friendly conversation starts at the table. At some point, Colin mentions that he and Violet made a bet over whether a man would be bold enough to make the first move and ask the waitress out. Since the topic of bets is already on the table, Colin suggests playing a game with their new friends. Nothing complicated. Whoever drinks a glass of wine first gets $50. Vince downs his glass before Colin even finishes explaining the rules. After winning, Vince wants to give the money to Craig, but Colin reminds him of the rules. The winner keeps the cash.
Colin immediately announces the second round. This time, Craig wins. To be fair, Vince clearly lets him win so his friend can earn a bit of money. The next challenge involves Violet. Colin offers $200 to anyone who can make her angry enough to slap them. Craig goes first, but his miserable appearance and weak attempts at insulting her only trigger pity and laughter. Vince, on the other hand, earns his $200 within minutes by getting slapped across the face. It becomes clear that Colin has no intention of stopping. His azart only grows stronger. He even starts using a white powder right at the table without caring who's watching. So openly, in fact, that when the waitress makes a remark, Colin simply hands her a stack of cash. The amount is enough for her to forget all rules and restrictions. As the night goes on, Violet gets bored, and Colin suggests moving to another club. Craig, still trying to act like a family man, refuses and says he needs to go home, but Vince convinces him not to ruin the party. A couple more hours won't hurt his family, and it would be rude to spoil Violet's birthday. The betting game continues at the next club, but the stakes go up. This time, Colin offers $200 to anyone who slaps a blonde woman at the bar. Despite Craig's attempts to stop him, Vince does it without hesitation. As a result, the group gets thrown out. Realizing the game has gone too far, Craig thanks everyone for the evening and tries to leave. But when Colin offers him $500 to punch a security guard in the face, Craig can't resist. Even the difference in size doesn't stop him. He walks up to the guard and punches him, earning both $500 and a brutal counterpunch. When Craig comes to, he finds himself in an unfamiliar house, a strange atmosphere, and $500 in his pocket. He quickly realizes he's in Colin and Violet's home. Vince explains that after Craig lost consciousness, they brought him there to help him recover and to continue the game. Craig once again prepares to leave. The night is no longer fun, and his broken nose proves it. Colin promises to find him some painkillers. While he goes to look for them, Violet sits next to Craig.
She's sweet, but clearly strange. For no obvious reason, she takes several photos of him. In another room, Colin finds the pills and shows them to Vince. Vince gets excited. These pills don't just kill pain, they significantly boost your mood. The men don't rush back to Craig. They let Violet stay alone with him, treat his wounds, and talk about her childhood memories. Eventually, Colin gives Craig the pill, assuring him it's just a painkiller. Craig takes it. To distract him, Colin and Vince take Craig up to the roof to admire the night city. At first, it seems harmless, just a calm conversation. But while Colin listens to Craig, Vince suddenly starts urinating on Craig's shoes, laughing and finding it hilarious. Furious, Craig goes to the bathroom to clean himself. Vince follows him. Alone together, Vince gets close and whispers his plan. He wants to rob the couple. They have a safe filled with stacks of cash. Craig hates the idea. He calls Vince crazy and says he doesn't want to go to prison. But Vince insists there will be no prison. No one would ever call the police to a house full of illegal substances. Vince tells Craig he's free to leave if he doesn't want the money. But desperation wins over fear. As soon as they leave the bathroom, Vince attacks Colin. Craig grabs Violet. The safe isn't even locked, and Vince easily pulls out thick bundles of cash. It's enough for both of them to start a new life. Just as they're about to leave, Vince notices a photo on the shelf. It shows Colin with trophies for martial arts competitions. The easy win turns out to be a trap. Colin and Violet instantly switch from victims to hunters. Surprisingly, Colin doesn't look angry. He smiles and cheerfully tells Vince that the money was meant for them anyway. But there's a condition. They have to keep playing so as not to ruin Violet's birthday. Colin says no one is being held by force. They can leave any time. But if they want the cash, they must complete more challenges. For example, holding their breath. Whoever lasts longer wins $500. Craig's phone rings and he steps away. His worried wife already knows he never met the friend he mentioned. She begs him to come home so they can face their problems together. But Craig believes staying home won't solve anything. He returns to the game. At Colin's signal, both men hold their breaths. Craig pushes himself to the limit for the money. Violet supports him, which enrages Vince. Trying not to lose, Vince punches Craig in the stomach. Craig loses, and with it, the prize. Craig explodes in anger, but Colin calmly reminds him that there were never any rules. Everyone plays however they want, and now Craig has a chance to win again. Colin complains about a neighbor's dog that keeps ruining his lawn. He suggests throwing the dog's mess into the neighbor's house. Craig completes the task faster and wins, but it's only a few $100s. Then, Colin offers Craig a real opportunity. For $4,500, the exact amount Craig needs, he must spend time alone with Violet and make sure she is satisfied. Against his family values, Craig does it and gets the money. Vince is furious. He'd gladly take Craig's place. He doesn't care about Craig's guilt. For the first time in his life, Craig has betrayed his wife, and now he has to live with it. Craig decides he's had enough and prepares to leave. He has enough to pay off his debt. The rest he'll figure out later. But Violet is upset by his departure and runs after him, trying to convince him to stay for more rounds. Vince doesn't understand why the hosts are so obsessed with Craig. He's willing to do anything Colin asks. Then, Colin presents a new idea. $25,000 if Vince cuts off his own pinky finger. Vince hesitates. At that moment, Craig returns. He realizes that $4,000 will only clear his debt, leaving him broke. To avoid that, he's ready to keep playing. Colin sets up an auction. Whoever agrees to cut off their pinky for less money wins. Craig wins the lot. He does it for $15,000. This drives Vince even deeper into rage.
The next challenge is pure madness. Colin suggests eating parts of the neighbor's dog. Whoever finishes faster gets $50,000. The round ends in a tie, so the final bite is Craig's severed finger. To his own shock, Craig does it. Vince snaps. He throws Craig to the floor and beats him mercilessly. Colin has to pull him away. Outside, Colin offers Vince a final unbeatable deal, $250,000. All he has to do is get rid of Craig. Colin convinces Vince that Craig betrayed him and deserves it. With that thought, Vince goes back inside, drinks, and grabs a gun. At the last moment, Vince realizes how insane everything has become. He tells Craig they need to leave immediately, but while Vince is distracted, Craig pulls the trigger. Unlike Vince, Craig isn't sentimental. $250,000 matter more to him than friendship. Colin calls Craig a taxi. He regretfully hands Violet $50. That's how much he bet on Vince winning the night. Bleeding and shaken, Craig returns home with a bag full of money. Holding his son, he thinks in horror about everything he went through. But the real terror begins when the light turns on, and Craig realizes he now has to explain everything to his wife.